Hi, we're back here at Bloggapalooza 2006. I'm here with Anastasia Pantsios of the Free Times here in Cleveland. She's the associate editor of the Free Times. Welcome.
Thank you.
Why are you here? You're not a blogger.
I wanted to meet the bloggers, and that's what this was advertised as, the opportunity to do.
That's good. You write a lot about politics, about
Occasionally.
culture.
I actually write mostly about music and the arts as my specialty.
But politics is definitely something interesting.
I'm passionately interested in, particularly on the state level these days, because there's a lot going on.
What's your take on the Ohio political scene?
On the Ohio?
On the Ohio political scene overall.
Oh, I think it's very volatile right now, and I think there's a great opportunity to make a meaningful difference right now. Obviously, as many have noted, Ohio is in a tailspin, and there's a lot of corruption here. I actually saw somewhere where Ohio was considered the most corrupt state in the United States. So obviously, there's an opportunity here to do some things a little differently after November. Elect some really good people.
How does the Free Times cover a race this year?
We don't really cover things the way like a plain dealer would or something like that, where you sort of, cover, everything that happens on a daily basis with a candidate. If they have a new ad out or there's a new poll or somebody just released a policy statement. We're looking as a weekly, we're looking at getting a little more behind stories, a little more in depth, or at looking at candidate from an angle that the daily papers might not bother with. And, as you know from Meet the Bloggers, there's a whole lot the daily papers don't cover, which is what Meet the Bloggers was formed to do when the plain dealer essentially refused to recognize that there were more than two candidates in the mayoral race. That's something that we also look at. I mean, we did an extensive article during the mayoral race about Bill Patman, who was one of the candidates completely ignored by the plain dealer. In the primary, we did an in-depth piece on Subodh Chandra, who again was a candidate that, he didn't get endorsed by the Democratic Party, but he was really getting a lot of people energized. And it was written by a writer who was also, an Indian American who, knew him and knew the community that he came from, and did a really great job of, kind of capturing what it was about him that, spoke to people.
Do you think that the influence of the state parties is felt at the major daily papers? I mean, if they're not covering, you talked about the mayoral race in Cleveland. I mean, clearly the two candidates that they were covering were Frank Jackson and Jane Campbell.
Right.
The state dailies really cover traditionally the candidates who are backed by the state party, and that goes for both parties. Why do you think that is? I mean, why do they cover?
Honestly, laziness.
Right.
I mean, I think you're dealing with a situation where, the Beacon Journal's a really prime example, because here's a paper that used to be so good that I would go, why bother to subscribe to the Plain Dealer? I'll just buy the Beacon Journal. And then they ran into a situation where the parent company, the media conglomerate that owns it, said, we've only got like an 18 or 20% profit margin. We need to have a 30% profit margin. And the paper was gutted. I mean, they just, there are a lot of stories been done about this, but they could slash sections, they slash the regional coverage, they slash local coverage, they just slash, and slash. And you get to a point where there's just not enough staff to do a meaningful job. Some of it may be priorities. I mean, I've been debating for a year and a half now as to exactly why the Plain Dealer covered the election anomalies in Ohio the way they did. And if you recall, this could easily have been a decision that this was something that was not to be covered, because their first coverage consisted of a few dismissive articles within a week of the elections with titles like, one I remember vividly was Internet Conspiracy Theories About Election Refuse to Die, and this was within a week of the election. Within about a month of the election, they did a big coverage on it, which I think was their intention of, was their way of covering the entire thing, but it consisted of essentially listing all the anomalies that have been reported, getting some statements from election activists saying something's obviously wrong and it needs to be investigated, and then getting counterbalancing statements from Republicans saying, oh no, everything was okay, this is just partisan politicking, sour grapes, blah, blah, blah. The plain dealer did not go out in the field and say, okay, we got to report that this happened in Mahoning County, or that, this precinct or ward, in this county had, 113% of the voters supposedly voted. Let's go out there and see what's going on. They didn't do that. So whether that
deeper digging on it,
they didn't do the actual investigation. Now they have the gall to have recently, after the Robert F. Kennedy article, Rolling Stone, have actually printed, something mocking that, saying, "Oh, we investigated and found nothing." But the joke is they didn't investigate. So why? I think it may be partly just overburdening the reporters, but also I think the reporters are probably sort of pushed in the direction of what they should cover and what they shouldn't.
How frustrating then is it on a weekly to not be able to do the deeper digging? I mean, do you feel like you're able to do the deeper digging?
I think we are, because we can take the time and we can look for angles, like I said, that the dailies aren't covering. What we can't do a lot of times is be the first on the story. Because if the story breaks at the wrong time, we're just not going to be the first on. Yeah, it could be 6 days before we're there. If it breaks on a Tuesday, yeah, we might be the first, because we go to press like Tuesday afternoon and come out Wednesday morning. But we don't think so much in terms of that. We try to think in terms of looking at stories in a different way and looking at aspects of the story that aren't covered. Like I've got something I'm working on for next week that the story was kind of covered everywhere and the response to the story was covered everywhere. I don't want to say what it is, but the Youngstown Vindicator, Akron Beacon Journal, Canton Repository all chose to cover the same chunk, but the chunk I think is most interesting, they all neglected. And the Plain Dealer didn't do anything about the response to the story at all. They just, initial story, it's over and out. It's something that concerns Ken Blackwell, which is an individual I've been keeping a good eye on for a while.
What do you think about Ken Blackwell?
Where do you
What are your
start?
observations?